Donald Trump's interview with the Wall Street Journal, he was asked about a number of topics, and a huge portion of the interview focused on immigration and border security. So let's discuss what he had to say. Now, when it comes to the border wall, the Wall Street Journal asked, do you have to have a completely funded wall, or would $1.6 billion be enough? Now, that was a reference to the immigration reform legislation that was being drafted by the Gang of Six, the senators. And in that legislation was the partial funding of the wall to the tune of $1.9 billion. And here's what Trump had to say about that. Let me tell you something about the wall. So I've always said we have to have a wall. I've also said Mexico's got to pay for it. Sometimes, on occasion, I'd add who's going to pay for it? Mexico. Well, they will pay for it, okay? There are many forms of payment. I could name 10 right now. Okay, so name 10.
Visa, MasterCard, shiny things. Sometimes at Chuck E. Cheese, they give you tickets.
Okay, there are many forms of payment. I didn't say how. So here is the follow-up question that the Wall Street Journal asked, and I'm so glad they asked it. Could you give us an example? And here's what Trump said. They can pay for it through, as an example, they can pay for it indirectly through NAFTA. Okay, we make a good deal on NAFTA. Say I'm going to take a small percentage of that money and it's going to go toward the wall. Guess what? Mexico's paying. But here's the thing, that answer is not good enough for me. Be specific about what that NAFTA deal would entail, right? Just saying, I'm gonna negotiate a good deal with NAFTA, and through that good deal, I'm gonna take a portion of it and it's gonna pay for the wall, and they're indirect. But no, you are asking Congress, explicitly asking Congress to give you $1.9 billion to begin funding that wall off the backs of US taxpayers. That is the antithesis of what you claimed you were gonna do when you were running.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
Wasn't that his major talking point when he was running in 2016,
yes,
saying that if you elect me, I'll get rid of all these trade agreements, the TPP, and he held that wedge against Hillary Clinton, the fact that she had initially signed on to TPP, and he said he was gonna get rid of NAFTA. And as you said, all of a sudden, now it's gonna go on our backs and the taxpayers are going to have to front the burden of something that maybe less than half asked for. I don't even know the percentage of the favorability of the wall.
But it just doesn't sell well. The idea that you are going to renegotiate NAFTA in this fantasy world and have this windfall of profit that's coming your way, who thinks that a good way to use that profit is for a wall? There's so much other stuff that's a better, easier sell for him.
Wait. Are we gonna get to the vicious rivers part?
I actually, unfortunately, there was so much in this interview, so I don't have that prepared, but he did go from talking about, how in the election, he kept mentioning how we need to build a wall along the border, never discussed treacherous terrain, never discussed rivers or mountains, nothing. He just said, we're gonna build a wall, it's gonna be a great big wall, it's gonna be really high. He never talked about the transparency of that wall. He never talked about anything specific, just that he was gonna build this wall, it was gonna be a big, beautiful wall that secures our borders. And now all of a sudden in this Wall Street Journal interview, he starts talking about how it's not gonna be a wall along the entire border because of that treacherous terrain. Oh, shocking.
Because we got mountains.
We have mountains and we have
mountains.
rivers. Yeah.
The vicious rivers.
He said vicious
was
rivers.
amazing. Those mean rivers. Vicious.
So actually, I have a little bit of that. So let's go to his answer regarding this border situation. The other thing, so the wall, by the way, it's really hard to read what he says because he speaks in a strange way. The other thing, so the wall's never meant to be 2,100 miles long. We have mountains that are far better than a wall. We have violent rivers that nobody goes near. We have areas, and then he just kind of stops himself. Now on the wall, we have cameras and we have highly sophisticated equipment, but the wall, the Border Patrol tells me the other ways more expensive. It's not less expensive. We have to have vision through the wall. Okay, so.
I think you could go to an area that doesn't have a wall and just say, Mr. President, do you like the wall? It's a transparent wall, just like you asked. You can see right through it.
This is going to be state-of-the-art wall.
I love that.
This is going to, let's go to the graphic, 68. This is his actual statement. This is a transcript of what he told the Wall Street Journal. This is going to be state-of-the-art wall. This will be state-of-the-art. But I can fully understand why you'd have to have vision. I'd like to be able to see 300 or 400 yards instead of where at a wall. We have no idea who's on the other side. Does this make sense, or am I just wasting my time? It does not make sense. You are wasting everyone's time. Just to answer.
Yeah. I mean, if it's longer than a tweet, it's probably really hard for him to construct a sentence.
No, but okay. Yes. So he has a communications director, as all presidents do and should have. His communications director is Hope Hicks. We've spoken about her on the show before. And so he apparently turned to her for validation during this portion of the question and answer. And Hope Hicks validated him by saying the following, and this is an exact transcript of what she said. It's what you've always talked. It's consistent with what you've always said.
That's her job.
Yeah.
She's a communications director for the president of the United States. It's what you've always talked. I'm not one of these people who sits there and nitpicks grammar and spelling, and I get it, that's annoying. But I mean, your communications director should have the ability to effectively communicate and in turn help you effectively communicate.
You have a dog, yeah?
Yes, he's the best thing.
And how do you talk to your dog?
Like a baby. Yeah.
This has happened to Hope Hicks with the president. Yeah. You know how if you're in a relationship, you have this shorthand, this weird talking, and some of their speech patterns subconsciously make their way into how you talk. Hope Hicks is probably going home and going like, oh my God, I can't put sentences together anymore because I spend so much time around that guy.
Yeah.
It's what you've always talked.
It's what he's always talked.
Yeah.
There is something that has happened. So you go to your computer, open up or your iPad or your cell phone, and you open up this transcript and you start reading. There will come a time where you get really tired of reading. That's when you need to continue. Because that's also where the president gets really tired of focusing. Yeah. And he hasn't focused much already, but that's when it starts to get batshit crazy.
Yes.
It starts to make even less sense. I want to tell you what, the reason I'm shuffling my papers is because I dropped them and they all got out of order. I put them together in a random order and they don't make less sense than they did when they were all in a
I was just going to say, it probably is the same kind of consistency or inconsistency.
You're right. And so, there was the border talk, and then he wants to talk a little bit about DACA. And this really stood out to me because he believes that there is a difference between the DACA demographic and Dreamers. He thinks those are two completely different groups. Don't believe me? Here's what he had to say. There's a big difference, first of all, there's a big difference between DACA and Dreamers, okay? Dreamers are different, and I want American kids to be Dreamers also, by the way. I want American kids to be Dreamers also. But there's a big difference between DACA and Dreamers, and a lot of times when I was with certain Democrats, they kept using the word Dreamer. I said, please, use the word DACA. It's a totally different word.
Someone told him this. Someone said this. There's the DREAM Act and there's DACA. And he was like, oh, really? I'm gonna run with that. Doesn't understand like the fundamental anything. That's what it is. Someone said something similar to this to him. He took a thread wrong, and then and he was called out on it, and now he wants to call everyone else out on it. It's like when you teach your kid a lesson, and then you hear them use your words telling someone else that they're wrong. And you're like, I don't really understand what I was talking about, but at least they seem to be learning something.
Yeah, this really, really concerns me. And again, it's gone from just utter disdain toward him, and a lot of the focus for my perception was about how deplorable he is, right? But you read this interview, and again, I want to really emphasize that it concerns me. And this is not the mind of someone who's focused, who's knowledgeable, who's competent, who's fit for office. I just really worry that he is, pushing for legislation and orchestrating certain policies when he has absolutely no understanding of the fundamentals of those policies.
Right. He's got no clue. He isn't able to learn, and he has no interest in learning.
His interest is just being a showman. And the other thing that comes across with this is his obsession with Obama. I've never heard a leader talk about the previous administration so much and size themselves up to it as much as Trump seems to think is necessary. Again, it's part of the inconsistent ramblings that make up or constitute the totality of this piece. He just throws in, well, that's different than the Obama administration.
There's this weird obsession of sizing himself up compared to President Obama. And that's why he undoes everything that Obama has done.
Yeah,
that's why
sure.
he, immediately goes back to, oh, look at what I was able to accomplish. Look what happened in the stock market under my administration versus the stock market under Obama's administration. There's a lot of emphasis on comparing himself to Obama throughout this entire interview, and it's not exclusively evident in this interview. You see it all the time. He does it all the time.
You just watched the video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.